You're sending a what to protect me? Ambassador Liam Reed's voice cracked with disbelief as he stared at the holographic display. The alien on the other end, a Zalaxian with skin that shimmered like polished emerald, merely blinked its 4 eyes in that maddeningly patient way. A Varaxian Guardian, Ambassador Reed. I assure you they are the most formidable protection units in the known galaxy. The High Council has assigned one of our finest specimens for your security detail during the summit. Liam ran a hand through his disheveled brown hair. Listen, Counselor Thrix, I appreciate the gesture, but everything I've read about Varaxians suggests they've historically considered humans to be, well, prey. The Zalaxian made a sound that might have been a chuckle or a small seizure. With aliens, it was always hard to tell. Ancient history, Ambassador. The Varaxians have been genetically and behaviorally modified for centuries. They're perfectly safe and impeccably loyal to whoever holds their contract. Your safety is paramount for this summit's success. Great, Liam thought. I'm being assigned a bodyguard from a species that used to hunt humans for sport. He forced a smile. When should I expect this, Guardian? The Varaxian will arrive at your quarters within the hour. Good day, Ambassador. The hologram flickered out before Liam could protest further. Liam collapsed into his chair, staring at the ceiling of his temporary quarters on Nexus Station, the massive space habitat serving as neutral ground for the upcoming Galactic Cooperation Summit. As Earth's first official ambassador to the Galactic Council, the pressure on his shoulders was already crushing. Now he'd have to deal with an apex predator bodyguard that probably still dreamed of humans as the perfect snack. Computer, he called out. Display all available information on Varaxian Guardians. The room's AI complied, projecting a series of horrifying images and statistics that did nothing to calm Liam's nerves. Varaxians stood roughly 8 feet tall, with exoskeletons that could withstand energy weapons, 4 powerful arms ending in claws that could shred steel, and sensory capabilities that made them nearly impossible to ambush. They were, by any reasonable definition, monsters. Fantastic, Liam muttered, scrolling through the images. Just fantastic. The door chimes sounded exactly 57 minutes later, causing Liam to jump so violently he nearly fell out of his chair. He straightened his diplomatic uniform, took a deep breath, and tried to look like someone who wasn't about to soil himself. Enter, he called, proud that his voice only quavered slightly. The door slid open, and Liam's heart nearly stopped. The Varaxian Guardian filled the entire doorframe, taller than the database had suggested, with midnight blue armored plates covering its body. Its head was a nightmare of compound eyes and sensing organs, with a mouth that seemed to contain several rows of teeth. The 4 arms were folded across its massive chest in what might have been a respectful posture, but looked more like it was restraining itself from immediate violence. Ambassador Reed, the creature said, its voice a surprising baritone that vibrated through the room. I am Guardian Krav'Zix. I have been assigned to ensure your survival during the Galactic Summit. Liam swallowed hard. Pleasure to meet you, Guardian Krav'Zix. Please, come in. The Varaxian ducked through the doorway, its movements unnervingly fluid for something so large. It scanned the room with those compound eyes, presumably checking for threats, before focusing back on Liam. Your quarters are inadequately secured, it stated flatly. The ventilation system provides 17 different infiltration routes. The windows, while reinforced, could be breached by standard military-grade explosives. The door lock can be bypassed by at least 3 different methods known to me. Well, that's comforting, Liam replied, wondering if he should be taking notes or simply accepting his impending doom. The Varaxian tilted its head in that universal gesture of confusion. Comfort was not my intention. Security is my purpose. Right, of course. Liam straightened his shoulders, trying to project confidence he absolutely did not feel. So how does this work exactly? Do you follow me everywhere? Stand guard outside my door? Hover menacingly in corners? All of the above, when appropriate. Krav'Zix replied without a hint of humor. I will maintain optimal distance for protection while allowing you to conduct your duties. During rest cycles, I will guard your quarters. During transit, I will screen all approaching individuals. During meetings, I will evaluate threats and neutralize them before they reach you. Neutralized? That sounds permanent. Krav'Zix's eyes seemed to narrow, though Liam couldn't be sure with their alien configuration. Would you prefer I allow threats to reach you before responding? No, no, Liam said quickly. Neutralizing is good. Very good. Big fan of neutralizing threats. A moment of awkward silence stretched between them, broken only when Liam's communicator chimed. He glanced at it, a message from his human assistant, Oliver. I have a briefing to attend in 30 minutes, Liam said. I suppose you'll be coming along? Correct. Liam nodded, grabbing his datapad. Well then, shall we get this strange partnership underway? The Varaxian didn't reply. simply moving to the door and taking up position slightly behind and to the right of Liam. Together, they stepped into the corridor, drawing immediate stares from passing station personnel and aliens alike. This is going to be a long summit, Liam thought. The first few days with his Voraxian shadow were tense. Liam couldn't shake the feeling of being stalked rather than protected, especially when he'd wake in the middle of the night to find Krav'Zix perfectly still in the corner of his room, those compound eyes reflecting the dim emergency lighting. The other diplomats clearly found the arrangement fascinating. The Arcosian ambassador, a gelatinous being that communicated through color patterns, would pulse bright orange whenever they passed in the hallway, which Liam's translator interpreted as intense amusement. The Moravian delegation, insectoid creatures not known for their tact, openly discussed the historical irony of a human being protected by a Voraxian within Liam's hearing. "They used to hunt your kind, yes?" one chittered during a pre-summit reception. "For the challenge, I believe. Something about humans being clever prey." "Ancient history," Liam replied, parroting Counselor Thrix's words while feeling Krav'Zix's presence looming behind him. "We've all evolved beyond our primitive instincts. Some more than others," the Moravian responded, its antennae twitching in what might have been skepticism. Throughout it all, Krav'Zix remained the perfect professional, silent, vigilant, and utterly terrifying to anyone who approached Liam too quickly. The Voraxian barely spoke unless addressed directly, and even then, its responses were minimalist at best. Until the fourth day, when everything changed. Liam was returning from a particularly frustrating negotiation session regarding Earth's mineral export rights. His head was pounding, his patience worn thin, and all he wanted was to collapse into bed. As they approached his quarters, Krav'Zix suddenly froze, one arm shooting out to stop Liam in his tracks. "What is it?" Liam whispered, immediately on edge. "Someone is in your quarters," the Voraxian replied, its voice barely audible. "Stay here." Before Liam could protest, Krav'Zix moved forward with shocking speed, overriding the door lock with a device from one of its many equipment pouches. The door slid open and the Voraxian disappeared inside. There was a crash, followed by a high-pitched scream that definitely wasn't human. Liam hesitated for all of 2 seconds before his curiosity overcame his sense of self-preservation. He darted into the room to find Krav'Zix holding a squirming Dralaxian, small, rodent-like aliens known for their skills in espionage, up against the wall. 2 of the Voraxian's arms pinned the intruder, while a third held what looked like a scanning device. "Ambassador," Krav'Zix acknowledged without turning. "This operative was planting surveillance devices in your quarters. The equipment signature is Centaurian." Liam's eyebrows shot up. "Centaurian? But they're our allies." "Apparently not," Krav'Zix replied, giving the Dralaxian a shake that made its teeth chatter. "What shall I do with the spy?" The Dralaxian's eyes widened in terror. "Please," it squeaked in heavily accented standard. "I was paid. Just business, nothing personal." "Don't let it eat me!" Liam blinked, momentarily thrown by the creature's assumption. "Nobody's eating anybody. Krav'Zix, can you detain it until station security arrives?" "Yes." The Voraxian produced restraints from another pouch and efficiently bound the spy's limbs. After station security took the Dralaxian away, and Liam filed the necessary reports, he found himself sitting across from Krav'Zix in the small dining area of his quarters. The Voraxian had meticulously swept the entire space for additional surveillance devices, finding 3 more that had apparently been planted before its assignment to Liam. "Thank you," Liam said finally, breaking the silence. "That could have been problematic for Earth's position at the summit." Krav'Zix inclined its head slightly. "I am performing my function. Still, I appreciate it." Liam hesitated, then decided to address the elephant in the room. "The spy seemed terrified you were going to eat him." For the first time, Krav'Zix seemed almost uncomfortable. "A common misconception about my species. Voraxians do not eat sentient beings. Anymore," Liam added before he could stop himself. The Voraxian's compound eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made Liam want to sink through the floor. "Yes, anymore. Just as humans no longer enslave each other, wage world wars, or experiment on sentient aliens that crash land on their planet." Liam felt his face heat up. "Touché. Every species has aspects of their history they do not celebrate," Krav'Zix continued unexpectedly. "The difference is in acknowledging them and evolving beyond them. That's surprisingly philosophical. You find philosophy surprising from a being you consider a monster?" There was no accusation in the Voraxian's tone, only a clinical interest. Liam winced. "I never said, 'Your body language, respiration, and pheromones communicate fear and distrust when in my presence.' This is natural but unnecessary. I have no interest in harming you, Ambassador Reed. Liam, he said impulsively, if we're going to be stuck together for the next 3 weeks, you might as well call me Liam. The Varaxian was silent for a moment, those alien eyes unreadable. Very well, Liam. It was a small thing, ridiculous really, but it felt like a step towards something less awkward than their current arrangement. Liam found himself smiling. So, Krav'Zix, do Varaxian guardians ever sleep, or do you just stand in corners all night watching your charges drool on their pillows? We enter a restorative state for approximately 2 hours every 48 hours, Krav'Zix replied. And you do not drool. You do, however, talk in your sleep. Liam nearly choked on air. I what? Last night you had an extended conversation about quantum physics with someone named Professor Wiggins. Your understanding of the subject is incomplete. For a moment, Liam stared at the alien in shock. Then, inexplicably, he burst out laughing. After a brief hesitation, Krav'Zix made a rumbling sound that might, just might, have been laughter too. The incident with the spy changed things. Liam found himself actually talking to Krav'Zix, rather than just enduring its presence. He learned that Varaxians had a complex society with multiple castes, that Krav'Zix belonged to the Guardian lineage, bred and trained specifically for protection duties, and that despite the fearsome appearance, Varaxians were actually omnivores with a preference for certain types of crystalline formations that they digested through a complex chemical process. So you're telling me you eat rocks? Liam asked incredulously as they walked to the summit's main chamber for the day's negotiations. Mineral formations, Krav'Zix corrected. Specifically, crystalline structures with high concentrations of certain rare elements. They sustain our bioenergetic processes and reinforce our exoskeletons. You literally are what you eat then, Liam mused. That's fascinating. Your species' consumption of deceased animal flesh is equally interesting, Krav'Zix replied. Yet you seem disturbed by my dietary preferences. Touché, again. As they entered the massive chamber where representatives from over 30 spacefaring civilizations gathered, Liam noticed several delegates eyeing them with new interest. Word of the spy incident had spread, and suddenly the human-Varaxian pairing seemed less like a cosmic joke and more like a formidable diplomatic unit. The Centaurian delegation was conspicuously apologetic, their senior ambassador personally assuring Liam that the espionage was the work of a rogue faction within their intelligence service. Liam accepted the apology with diplomatic grace, all while Krav'Zix loomed behind him, a silent reminder of the failed operation. Days passed, and Liam found himself actually enjoying Krav'Zix's company. The Varaxian had a dry, understated sense of humor that emerged gradually, like a hesitant plant growing towards sunlight. Liam had learned, though Varaxian gender concepts were complicated, offered insights into the other species that proved invaluable during negotiations. The Arcosians' color patterns indicate they are being deceptive about their production capabilities, Krav'Zix murmured during one particularly tense session. How can you tell? Liam whispered back. Their tertiary pigment cells are pulsing at a frequency associated with stress responses. They only do this when actively suppressing their natural coloration, what you might call a tell. Armed with this information, Liam was able to press the Arcosians until they conceded more favorable terms for Earth's exports. Later, in private, the Arcosian ambassador pulsed a deep indigo of respect. Your Varaxian sees much, they commented. A fortunate pairing. Liam glanced at Krav'Zix, who stood at a respectful distance. Yes, he agreed. I think it is. The attack came on the 10th day of the summit, during a rare moment when Liam had convinced Krav'Zix to wait outside, while he had a private conversation with the Terran colonial representative, a fellow human who claimed to have sensitive information that could only be shared in absolute privacy. I appreciate your discretion, Ambassador Reed, the man said, glancing nervously at the door where Krav'Zix's shadow was visible through the frosted glass. What I'm about to tell you could destabilize Earth's position if it became widely known. Liam leaned forward. You have my full attention, Representative Donovan. The man reached into his jacket, and Liam's diplomatic instincts screamed a warning a fraction of a second too late. The small device that emerged wasn't a data chip, but a neural disruptor, illegal throughout civilized space for its ability to cause excruciating pain without leaving evidence. This isn't personal, Reed, Donovan said, his face hardening. But Earth's interests aren't served by this integration. We need to maintain our independence, our human identity. This treaty you're pushing would make us just another vassal state. Liam raised his hand slowly. Donovan, think about what you're doing. This summit is our chance to secure humanity's place in the galaxy. Without these agreements, Without these agreements, we stay human, Donovan hissed, his finger tightening on the disruptor's trigger. The colonies understand what Earth has forgotten. We need to stand alone, or we'll be consumed by these aliens. That's not true, and you know it, Liam argued, desperately trying to keep his voice steady. Isolation is a death sentence. The galaxy doesn't care about our pride, only our ability to cooperate and contribute. Donovan's hand shook slightly. You're so naive. Do you think your pet monster out there actually cares about you? About humanity? It's just following programming. The moment that programming fails, the door exploded inward with such force that both men jumped. Krav'Zix filled the doorframe, his exoskeleton bristling with what Liam now recognized as combat readiness. Step away from the ambassador, the Varaxian commanded, voice vibrating with lethal intent. Donovan swung the disruptor toward Krav'Zix, firing twice in rapid succession. The energy pulses struck the Varaxian's chest plates, causing him to stagger slightly but not fall. Before Donovan could fire again, Krav'Zix moved with that uncanny speed, crossing the room and wrenching the weapon away with such force that Liam heard bones snap. Donovan screamed, clutching his broken wrist as Krav'Zix lifted him off the ground with 2 arms, while a third pressed something against his neck that made him go instantly limp. Are you injured? Krav'Zix asked, those compound eyes scanning Liam intensely. Liam shook his head, still processing what had just happened. No, I'm fine. How did you know? Your heart rate elevated dramatically. I monitor your vital signs continuously. That's both creepy and apparently life-saving. Liam ran a hand through his hair. Is he dead? Sedated, Krav'Zix replied, depositing Donovan's unconscious form on the floor with surprising gentleness. He requires medical attention for his wrist. Liam sank into a chair, the adrenaline leaving his system in a rush that made him lightheaded. He said you were just following programming. That you didn't actually care about protecting me. Krav'Zix was silent for a long moment, those alien eyes unreadable. Technically, he was correct. I am bound by contract to ensure your survival. Oh, Liam tried not to feel disappointed. However, the Varaxian continued. The contract specifies only that I prevent immediate physical harm. It does not require me to monitor your vital signs constantly, to research human physiology to better understand your needs, or to learn Earth customs to avoid causing you social discomfort. Liam looked up, surprised. You did all that? Yes. Krav'Zix moved to the communications panel, presumably to call security. Those were personal initiatives. Despite the unconscious would-be assassin on the floor, Liam found himself smiling. So you're saying you like me? The Varaxian made that rumbling sound again. Definitely laughter, Liam decided. Humans and your need to simplify complex interactions. Yes, Liam Reed. I like you. You are unusual. Coming from an 8-foot-tall alien predator, I'll take that as a compliment. The summit's security was tripled after the incident. Investigation revealed that Donovan was part of a human extremist group called Earth First that opposed integration with the galactic community. Several other operatives were discovered among the staff and delegations, all arrested before they could carry out similar attacks. Liam found himself thrust into an even more prominent role as sympathy for Earth's position grew among the delegates. The assassination attempt was viewed as an attack on the summit itself, and many species that had been hesitant now showed solidarity with the human cause. Through it all, Krav'Zix remained at his side, but the dynamic had shifted yet again. They were no longer merely guardian in charge, nor even reluctant colleagues. There was something approaching friendship between them, built on shared danger and growing mutual respect. Your species continues to confound expectations, Krav'Zix commented, as they reviewed security footage of the other Earth First operatives being taken into custody. Most developing civilizations present a unified front when first contacting the galactic community. Humans are contradictory by nature, Liam replied with a wry smile. We're capable of incredible compassion and horrific cruelty, often simultaneously. We build and destroy, love and hate, unite and divide. It's exhausting. It is vibrant, Krav'Zix countered. Varaxians achieved species-wide consensus generations ago. While efficient, it has led to a certain stagnation. Liam glanced at the alien with newfound curiosity. Is that why you chose to become a guardian? To experience something different? Krav'Zix's exoskeleton shifted slightly, the equivalent of a shrug. Perhaps. My lineage has served as guardians for 12 generations. It is considered an honor. But not what you would have chosen for yourself? The Varaxian's compound eyes fixed on Liam with that penetrating gaze. Choice is a luxury many species take for granted, including humans, Liam acknowledged. So if you could choose anything, What would you do instead of being a guardian? For a long moment, Krav'Zix was silent, and Liam wondered if he'd overstepped some cultural boundary. Finally, the Varaxian spoke, his voice quieter than usual. I would study. There are research enclaves on my homeworld dedicated to understanding other species, not for tactical advantages, but for knowledge itself. I find other forms of life fascinating. You'd be a xenobiologist? Liam couldn't keep the surprise from his voice. The concept translates imperfectly, but yes. I have collected observational data on 17 different sentient species during my Guardian contracts. The patterns of behavior, the biological adaptations, the cultural solutions to universal problems, they are beautiful. Liam stared at the Varaxian, suddenly seeing him in an entirely new light. Krav'Zix, that's amazing. Why haven't you pursued it? Guardian lineages serve until retirement age. It is our duty. But that's... Liam started to protest, then caught himself. Who was he to judge another species' social structures? Well, for what it's worth, I think you'd make an excellent xenobiologist. Your observations have already saved my negotiations multiple times. Your approval is noted, Krav'Zix replied. But there was a warmth in his voice that hadn't been there before. The final days of the summit were a whirlwind of activity. Earth's position had been significantly strengthened by the sympathy garnered after the assassination attempt, and Liam found himself finalizing agreements that would have seemed impossible weeks earlier. Trade routes, technology exchanges, cultural programs. Humanity was about to take its place as a full member of the galactic community. And yet, as the closing ceremony approached, Liam found himself increasingly distracted by thoughts of what would come after. Specifically, what would happen to Krav'Zix when his contract ended. You're unusually quiet, the Varaxian noted as they prepared for the final session. Your vital signs indicate anxiety. Liam smiled despite himself. Still monitoring me, huh? It has become habit, Krav'Zix admitted. Is something troubling you? Just thinking about what happens next, Liam replied, adjusting his formal diplomatic attire. After the summit ends tomorrow, I'll be heading back to Earth to present our agreements to the World Council. And I will receive a new assignment, Krav'Zix stated. The High Council has already indicated that my performance in protecting you has been satisfactory. My next contract will likely be of similar importance. Right, of course. Liam busied himself with his cuffs, not meeting those compound eyes. Well, whoever gets you next is lucky. You're very good at what you do. There was a moment of silence before Krav'Zix spoke again. You are concerned about our friendship ending. Leave it to the Varaxian to be blunt. Maybe a little, Liam admitted. It's not every day a human becomes friends with a species that used to hunt us for sport. Indeed. The historical irony has not escaped notice among my kind. Liam looked up, surprised. You've told other Varaxians about me? Your case is unique. A human who overcame instinctive fear to form a social bond with a Varaxian guardian. It has been documented in my reports to the home enclave. Wait, I'm a research subject? Liam wasn't sure whether to be amused or offended. All of my charges are documented, Krav'Zix clarified. You are simply the most interesting. Well, I'm flattered, I think. Liam checked the time display. We should head to the chamber. History awaits. As they walked through the corridors of Nexus Station for what would be one of the last times, Liam found himself trying to memorize the experience. The slight vibration of the deck plates beneath his feet, the curious glances from passing aliens, and the now comforting presence of Krav'Zix at his side. The final session went perfectly. The Galactic Cooperation Treaty was signed by all 32 delegations, with Earth's signature prominently displayed alongside ancient spacefaring civilizations. As Liam pressed his thumb to the document, officially committing humanity to its galactic future, he felt a wave of pride and accomplishment. The reception afterward was lavish by station standards, diverse foods from dozens of worlds, entertainment that crossed species boundaries, and a general atmosphere of optimism that was almost tangible. Liam found himself moving from group to group, accepting congratulations, and forging the personal connections that would underpin the formal agreements. Through it all, Krav'Zix remained nearby, no longer just a security presence but an active participant. Several delegates specifically sought out the Varaxian to discuss their observations, seemingly impressed by his insights. Liam watched with a growing sense of pride as Krav'Zix engaged in complex discussions about comparative biology with a group of Moravian scientists. Your guardian has remarkable scientific aptitude, noted the Galactic Councilor, appearing at Liam's side. Unusual for a combat lineage. Krav'Zix is unusual in many ways, Liam agreed. He's been invaluable, both as protection and as an advisor. Councilor Thrix's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of thoughtful consideration. The contract expires tomorrow. Would you wish to extend it? Liam hesitated. I'm not sure that's my decision to make. Krav'Zix mentioned being assigned to a new contract already. Preliminary discussions only. Thrix waved a delicate hand dismissively. Nothing is finalized until the current contract concludes. If both parties agree to an extension, the High Council would not object. Your partnership has been remarkably effective. Before Liam could respond, a commotion broke out across the reception hall. Raised voices, the sound of breaking glass, and then a scream that cut through the ambient noise like a knife. Liam turned to see a group of station security officers rushing toward the disturbance. "What's happening?" he asked. But Thrix was already moving away, speaking rapidly into a communication device. Liam scanned the room for Krav'Zix, spotting the Varaxian already in motion, heading directly toward the source of the chaos. Without thinking, Liam followed, weaving through confused delegates. He reached the edge of a clearing in the crowd just in time to see Krav'Zix intercept a blur of motion. A figure that moved with unnatural speed, wielding what looked like a ceremonial blade. The attacker was humanoid but clearly not human, with pale, almost translucent skin and eyes that glowed an unnatural red. "Proxy drone," Krav'Zix announced, his two right arms restraining the thrashing figure while his left arms disarmed it. "Synthetic construct, Ambassador, stay back." The warning came too late. From the opposite side of the room, a second identical figure emerged from the crowd, moving directly toward Liam with that same unnatural speed. He had barely registered the threat when something heavy struck him from behind, sending him sprawling to the floor. Liam rolled over to see one of the Arcosian delegates, the one who had respected his negotiation tactics, covering him with their gelatinous form. The second attacker's blade struck the Arcosian, who rippled with pain but didn't move from their protective position. "Liam!" Krav'Zix's voice carried over the chaos. The Varaxian had neutralized the first attacker, and was now charging toward the second, but the distance was too great. Time seemed to slow as Liam watched the second attacker raise its blade again, preparing to strike through the wounded Arcosian to reach him. He tried to roll away, to give his unexpected protector a chance to retreat. But they held firm, their body changing from transparent to a deep protective purple. The blade began its downward arc, and then stopped as a projectile struck the attacker's head with such force that the synthetic construct's skull shattered, revealing circuitry and fluid instead of brain matter. The body crumpled like a puppet with cut strings. Liam looked up to see station security closing in, weapons drawn. Beyond them, Krav'Zix was already at his side, carefully lifting the injured Arcosian while scanning Liam for injuries. "I am unharmed," Liam assured him, getting to his feet. "Thanks to our Arcosian friend here." The Arcosian pulsed weakly, their color fading to a pale blue that Liam recognized as their equivalent of blood loss. Medical teams were rushing in, and Krav'Zix gently transferred the wounded delegate to their care. The summit was the perfect opportunity, one of the security officers was explaining to the gathering of ambassadors. "All major powers in one place, minimally armed due to diplomatic protocols. We've been tracking a terrorist cell, species supremacists who oppose galactic integration. They smuggled these proxy drones aboard disguised as service units. Their primary target appears to have been you, Ambassador Reed," another officer said, approaching Liam. "As the face of Earth's integration efforts." Liam nodded, still processing what had happened. "If not for the Arcosian delegate and Krav'Zix." "A fortunate combination," the officer agreed. "The station commander extends his apologies for the security breach. A full investigation is already underway." As the reception hall was cleared and delegates escorted back to their quarters under heavy guard, Liam found himself in a small medical bay, being checked for injuries despite his protests that he was fine. Krav'Zix stood nearby, refusing to leave even when the medical staff suggested it. "You were lucky," the Varaxian stated once they were alone again. "If the Arcosian had not acted—" "I know," Liam said quietly. "I owe them my life." "As do I." Krav'Zix's voice was uncharacteristically solemn. "A guardian who fails in their primary duty faces severe consequences." Liam looked up sharply. "That's ridiculous. You couldn't have been in two places at once. Nevertheless, it is the standard to which we are held." Krav'Zix moved closer, towering over the examination table where Liam sat. The attack was sophisticated. The proxies were designed to operate in tandem, one as distraction, one as assassin. "I should have anticipated this tactic. Nobody could have predicted this," Liam argued. "Not even you." The Varaxian made a sound that might have been frustration. "Your species' capacity for forgiveness is illogical." "Maybe," Liam smiled, "but it's one of our better qualities." A comfortable silence fell between them, broken eventually by the arrival of Counselor Thrix, who insisted on personally escorting them back to Liam's quarters. The corridors were now lined with security officers from multiple species, all on high alert after the attack. The treaty signing remains valid, Krav'Zix assured Liam as they walked. This regrettable incident will not derail what we have accomplished. Good to know, Liam replied, feeling the exhaustion of the day finally catching up to him. What about the Arcosian delegate? Will they recover? Their prognosis is positive. Krav'Zix's eyes blinked in that sequential pattern again. Their species has remarkable regenerative capabilities. A rather dramatic gesture of interspecies cooperation, wouldn't you agree? Very dramatic, Liam agreed. I'm just glad they'll recover. When they reached his quarters, now flanked by 4 additional security officers, Krav'Zix bowed slightly. Rest well, Ambassador. Your shuttle departs at Station Standard 1400 tomorrow. I will personally see to your safe transfer. After the Zalaxian left, Liam collapsed onto his couch, the adrenaline finally draining from his system and leaving him shaky. Krav'Zix moved around the quarters with methodical precision, checking security systems and scanning for any potential threats before finally seeming satisfied. You should sleep, the Varaxian stated, standing near the bedroom doorway. The attack has depleted your energy reserves. That obvious, huh? Liam smiled weakly. I don't know if I can sleep after all that. My mind is still racing. Krav'Zix tilted his head in that now familiar gesture of consideration. Humans often benefit from discussing traumatic events. Would verbalization help? Liam couldn't help but laugh. Are you offering to be my therapist now? I am concerned, Krav'Zix admitted. Your vital signs indicate significant stress. I was almost assassinated at the pinnacle of my career. I think I'm entitled to a little stress. Liam ran a hand through his hair. But you're right. Talking might help. He patted the space beside him on the couch, and after a moment's hesitation, Krav'Zix carefully lowered himself onto it, the furniture groaning slightly under his weight. So, Liam began, not entirely sure where to start. Earth is officially part of the galactic community. All it cost was nearly getting stabbed by a robot assassin. 2 robot assassins, Krav'Zix corrected. Right, 2, much better. Liam leaned his head back, staring at the ceiling. You know, when they assigned me this position, I thought the hardest part would be the negotiating. Turns out it was just staying alive long enough to sign the papers. Your species faces similar challenges to many newly integrated civilizations, Krav'Zix offered. Internal resistance to change, external threats from those who fear disruption of existing power structures. It is a dangerous transition period. That's comforting. It was not meant to be comforting, merely factual. The Varaxian shifted slightly. However, if comfort is your objective, consider this. Of the last 12 species to join the Galactic Council, 9 faced assassination attempts on their primary representatives. All 9 survived. You are now part of that statistical majority. Liam turned to look at the alien, a smile tugging at his lips. That's your idea of comfort? Statistics about assassination attempts? Was it ineffective? Actually, no. It does help in a weird way. Liam shook his head in amazement. You're getting better at understanding humans. I have had an excellent research subject, Krav'Zix replied, and Liam could swear there was warmth in that inhuman voice. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only when Liam yawned widely. You require rest, Krav'Zix stated, rising from the couch. I will maintain vigilance. Wait, Liam said, suddenly remembering his conversation with Counselor Krav'Zix. Before you go into Guardian mode for the night, there's something I wanted to ask you. The Varaxian paused, compound eyes fixed on him with that unnerving intensity. Krav'Zix mentioned that your contract could be extended, if we both agreed. Liam felt unaccountably nervous. I know you said there were preliminary discussions about your next assignment, but would you consider staying on as my guardian? At least until things settle down on Earth with the treaty implementation? Krav'Zix went very still. Even his breathing seemed to pause. You wish to extend our contract? Yes, if you're amenable, of course. Liam hurried on. I mean, we work well together, and there are clearly still threats out there. Plus, Earth would be a new environment for your research. My assignment was to protect you during the summit, Krav'Zix said slowly. That duty concludes tomorrow. I know, but... However, the Varaxian continued, there is precedent for extended contracts when ongoing threats are identified. The attacks today provide sufficient justification. Liam felt a surge of hope. So that's a yes. It would require approval from both the High Council and your Earth authorities, Krav'Zix cautioned. But yes, I would accept such an extension. Great. Liam grinned, irrationally pleased. I'll speak to my superiors first thing tomorrow. Between the spy incident and today's attack, I think they'll see the value in continued protection. Your enthusiasm is unexpected, Krav'Zix observed. Most clients view Guardian contracts as necessary inconveniences, not desirable arrangements. Well, most clients probably don't become friends with their Guardians. Liam stood, stretching his tired muscles. And I imagine most Guardians don't use their assignments for xenobiological research. An accurate assessment, Krav'Zix conceded. Our arrangement has been mutually beneficial. That's one way of putting it. Liam headed toward the bedroom, pausing at the doorway. Good night, Krav'Zix. And thanks, not just for the protection, but for everything else too. The Varaxian inclined his head in that formal gesture that Liam had come to recognize as acknowledgement. Rest well, Liam Reed. Morning came too quickly, and with it the flurry of activity associated with departure. Liam's quarters became a revolving door of station officials, Earth diplomats, and various aliens stopping by to bid farewell or finalize last-minute details. Through it all, Krav'Zix remained a constant presence, efficiently managing the flow of visitors while maintaining security protocols. Liam caught glimpses of the Varaxian occasionally conferring with station security about transport arrangements, his massive form dwarfing even the burliest officers. Ambassador Reed, a human aide approached, datapad in hand. Your shuttle is prepared and your luggage has been transferred. We're scheduled for departure in 30 minutes. Thank you, Oliver, Liam replied, finishing his conversation with the Moravian trade attaché. Has there been any word from Earth regarding my security request? Yes, sir. Oliver consulted his datapad. The World Council has approved the extended contract with Guardian Krav'Zix, pending Galactic High Council approval. They were quite insistent after receiving the report about yesterday's incident. Excellent. Liam couldn't keep the satisfaction from his voice. And the Galactic side? Councillor Thrix has fast-tracked the approval. It came through about an hour ago. Oliver lowered his voice slightly. Between us, sir, I think they're a bit embarrassed about the security breach. Extending the Guardian contract was the least they could do. Their embarrassment is our gain, Liam replied, clapping the young man on the shoulder. Make sure Krav'Zix is fully briefed on Earth protocols before we board. I don't want any surprises when we land. Already done, sir. Oliver glanced at the Varaxian with poorly disguised fascination. He's very thorough. When the time came to depart, Liam found himself surprisingly reluctant to leave the station that had been his home for the past weeks. For all its dangers and diplomatic pressures, Nexus had been the site of humanity's greatest achievement in interstellar relations, and the beginning of what Liam now considered an improbable friendship. The shuttle bay was crowded with dignitaries making their own departures, creating a cacophony of different languages and communication styles. Krav'Zix efficiently cleared a path through the throng, his imposing presence causing even the most self-important delegates to step aside. Ambassador Reed, Councillor Thrix appeared, those emerald skin shimmering under the bay lights. A moment, if you please. Liam paused, gesturing for his staff to continue boarding. Councillor, what can I do for you? I wish to personally confirm the extension of Guardian Krav'Zix's contract, Thrix said, all four eyes blinking in sequence. It is unusual for a Guardian to request their own extension. Liam glanced at Krav'Zix, who stood impassively nearby. He requested it? Indeed, most irregular. Thrix's voice held a note of amusement. The High Council was quite intrigued. A Varaxian Guardian developing sufficient rapport with a human client to request continued service. It is unprecedented. Well, I'm honored, Liam replied, genuinely touched. And grateful for the Council's approval. Earth's successful integration benefits us all, Thrix said diplomatically. Safe journey, Ambassador. I anticipate our next meeting with interest. As the Zalaxian moved away, Liam turned to Krav'Zix. You requested the extension? You led me to believe it was my idea. It was your idea, Krav'Zix replied. I merely formalized the request through proper channels before you had the opportunity. That's... Liam shook his head, smiling. Efficient. I am nothing if not efficient. The Varaxian agreed, a hint of that rumbling laughter in his voice. They boarded the shuttle together, Krav'Zix having to duck his massive frame through the human-sized doorway. The small craft was primarily staffed by humans, Earth's diplomatic security team, who eyed the Varaxian with expressions ranging from curiosity to thinly veiled apprehension. Guardian Krav'Zix will be continuing as my personal security detail when we reach Earth, Liam announced to the team as they prepared for departure. I expect you all to coordinate your protocols accordingly. Yes, Ambassador, the security chief replied, her professional demeanor not quite hiding her surprise. We've received the authorization. Accommodation arrangements have been made at the diplomatic compound. As the shuttle detached from Nexus Station and began its journey toward the waiting Earth vessel in higher orbit, Liam found a moment of quiet to sit beside Krav'Zix, who was examining the shuttle's interior with apparent interest. Having second thoughts? Liam asked quietly. The Varaxian turned those compound eyes toward him. About? Earth, humans, extending your contract with a species your ancestors used to hunt. Krav'Zix was silent for a moment, his exoskeleton shifting slightly in what Liam had come to recognize as thoughtfulness. My species has a saying, the hunt reveals truth. It means that true understanding comes from close observation and interaction. And what truth has your hunt revealed about humans? That you are far more complex than our historical records suggested, Krav'Zix replied. Your species' capacity for adaptability, for forming connections across biological barriers, for finding humor in danger. These are traits worth studying. Worth experiencing. High praise from a former apex predator, Liam smiled. Not former, Krav'Zix corrected. Current, but even apex predators can evolve new hunting strategies. Liam raised an eyebrow. Should I be worried about that statement? No, the Varaxian said, that rumbling laughter more pronounced now. My hunt is for knowledge now, not prey. And in that pursuit, Ambassador Liam Reed, you have proven to be the most fascinating quarry I have ever encountered. I'll take that as a compliment, Liam replied, settling back in his seat as the shuttle accelerated toward its rendezvous point. Beyond the viewport, stars streaked by, the same stars that would soon shine down on Earth as it took its place in the wider galactic community. And beside him sat living proof that even the most improbable alliances could form when old fears gave way to new understanding. The Varaxian Guardian had indeed switched sides, not from predator to protector, as the Galactic Council had intended, but from distant observer to engaged participant in a friendship that defied evolutionary history. As humanity prepared to step onto the galactic stage, Liam couldn't help but think it was a promising beginning. Earth will be an adjustment for you, Liam said after a while. Humans might not be as accepting as I've been. I anticipate resistance, Krav'Zix agreed. Fear responses are natural when confronted with historical predators. We'll work through it, Liam promised. One step at a time. The Varaxian made a sound that might have been contentment, a human approach to problems. Small increments rather than sweeping solutions. It's served us well so far. Indeed it has, Krav'Zix agreed, those alien eyes somehow conveying what might have been affection. Indeed it has. As the shuttle docked with the Earth vessel that would carry them home, Liam realized that the treaty he'd signed wasn't just a political agreement. It was the first page of a new chapter for humanity. And somehow, against all evolutionary odds, a Varaxian Guardian had become part of that story. Not as an enemy, not even merely as an ally, but as a friend. End. So let me get this straight, Captain Rex Hartwell said, leaning back in his command chair with all the casual grace of a man who'd just been told his ex-wife wanted alimony payments in cryptocurrency. The Zephyrians, our beloved allies for the past 15 years, decided to switch sides mid-battle and are now actively hunting down every human ship in the sector? That's correct, sir, Lieutenant Commander Ellis replied, her voice carrying that special tone reserved for delivering news that's about as welcome as a tax audit during a family reunion. Intelligence reports indicate they've been feeding our positions to the hegemony forces for at least 3 months. Rex let out a laugh that had absolutely zero humor in it. The kind of laugh you make when you realize the universe has a sense of humor, and you're the punchline. Well, isn't that just peachy? Here I was thinking we were fighting alongside our scaly friends, sharing battle plans and tactical data like some kind of interstellar book club, and it turns out they've been playing both sides like a rigged poker game. He stood up and began pacing around the bridge of the Retribution, his boots making that satisfying metallic click against the deck plating that every starship captain secretly enjoys. Tell me, Ellis, how many human ships did we lose in the Kepler offensive? 17 destroyers, 4 cruisers, and the carrier Valiant, sir. Total casualty count is... She paused, checking her datapad. 4,237 confirmed KIA. 4,000. Rex stopped pacing and turned to face the main view screen, where the stars stretched out in that deceptively peaceful way that made you forget the galaxy was currently trying to kill you. 4,000 good people who thought they were fighting alongside allies, not feeding intel to the enemy through a bunch of two-faced reptilian backstabbers. Now, you might be wondering how humanity got into this mess. It's actually a pretty typical Tuesday in the grand scheme of galactic politics. which is to say it's completely insane and makes about as much sense as using a chocolate teapot in a volcano. See, the thing about humans is we have this annoying habit of trusting people. Well, not people exactly, since most of our neighbors in this corner of the galaxy are various combinations of scales, tentacles, and what can generously be described as creative interpretations of the bipedal form. But you get the idea. We meet someone, they seem friendly enough, they don't immediately try to vaporize us, and boom, best friends forever. The Zephyrians had been particularly good at this whole friendship charade. Tall, elegant creatures with silver scales, and these piercing blue eyes that made them look wise and trustworthy. They spoke in measured tones about honor and duty, helped us develop new technologies, and even invited human diplomats to their cultural festivals. Rex had attended one of those festivals himself, back when he was just a lieutenant, and he had to admit their ceremonial dances were pretty impressive. Of course, now he realized they were probably practicing victory celebrations. "Sir?" Ellis was looking at him with that expression junior officers get when they're not sure if their commanding officer is having a breakthrough or a breakdown. "Your orders?" Rex turned back to his crew, and for a moment his expression was unreadable. Then slowly a grin spread across his face. Not the friendly kind of grin you give to your grandmother when she shows you her collection of ceramic cats. This was the kind of grin that made smart people take a step backward and really stupid people take a step forward, usually right before they learned why that was a mistake. "Well, Ellis, I think it's time we reminded the galaxy why humans are generally considered a bad species to cross." He walked over to the communications console. "Open a channel to Admiral Hayes at Central Command." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Admiral Catherine Hayes, a woman who looked like she could arm wrestle a black hole and win by technical knockout. Her steel-gray hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her eyes held the kind of intensity that suggested she'd been dealing with bureaucratic nonsense all morning, and was looking for someone to take it out on. "Rex, please tell me you have good news," she said without preamble. "Because I've spent the last 4 hours explaining to the Senate Defense Committee why we can't just ignore the fact that our allies are shooting at us." "Well, Admiral, I'd love to tell you that, but I'm afraid I'm calling with a different kind of proposal." Rex clasped his hands behind his back, adopting what his crew had come to recognize as his about to suggest something that will either be brilliant or get us all court-martialed pose. "I want permission to implement Protocol 7. There was a silence on the channel that lasted just long enough for everyone on the bridge to start wondering if the transmission had cut out. Then Admiral Hayes leaned forward, her expression shifting from tired frustration to sharp attention. "Protocol 7? Rex, that protocol hasn't been authorized since the Martian Independence War. And that was against other humans. You're talking about implementing it against an entire alien species. An alien species that just orchestrated the deaths of over 4,000 of our people while pretending to be our friends," Rex replied, his voice level but carrying an edge that could have cut through battleship armor. "Ma'am, with respect, they violated every treaty, every accord, every gentleman's agreement we've made in the past 15 years. They fed our battle plans to the enemy, disclosed our fleet positions, and probably shared our weaknesses and tactical doctrines with half the hegemony. Protocol 7. Now there's a name that doesn't show up in the official military handbooks anymore, at least not in the sections that civilian oversight committees are allowed to read. It was developed during the early days of human space expansion, back when we were still figuring out that the universe was full of species who viewed us as either potential slaves, potential food, or potential target practice. The basic concept was simple. When diplomacy fails and conventional warfare isn't getting the job done, you stop playing by everyone else's rules and start playing by human rules. And human rules, as it turns out, are absolutely terrifying when applied with proper motivation and a complete disregard for what other species consider civilized warfare. "Admiral," Rex continued, "they betrayed us because they thought humans were predictable. They thought they knew how we'd respond, how we'd fight, what our limitations were. I propose we show them exactly how wrong they were." Admiral Hayes was quiet for a long moment, and Rex could practically hear the gears turning in her head. Catherine Hayes hadn't become the youngest admiral in the fleet by being indecisive, but she also hadn't survived 30 years of interstellar politics by being reckless. "What did you have in mind, Captain?" Rex's grin widened. "Well, ma'am, the Zephyrians have been very careful to make sure their betrayal looks like a legitimate change of alliance. They withdrew from joint operations, formally rescinded our mutual defense pacts, and even returned our diplomatic staff. All very proper and legal according to galactic law. And they forgot that humans have never been particularly concerned with what other species consider proper and legal when those same species are trying to kill us." Rex gestured to Ellis, who began pulling up star charts on the main display. They've left their home systems relatively undefended because they're assuming we'll focus our retaliation on military targets in the contested zones. They think we'll play by the rules of civilized warfare. Rex. Admiral, they've got 12 major industrial worlds, 37 colonial settlements, and approximately 40 billion civilians who are currently going about their daily lives under the assumption that their government's betrayal won't have any consequences for them personally. The star charts showed the extent of Zephyrian space, a sprawling network of systems that had been considered friendly territory just a few days ago. I propose we make that assumption very, very incorrect. Now, before you start thinking Rex had gone completely off the deep end and was planning to start glassing civilian populations like some kind of space Nazi, let me clarify what Protocol 7 actually entailed. See, humans had learned something important during our early expansion into space. The most effective way to win a war isn't necessarily to kill all your enemies. Sometimes, it's to make them realize that continuing to fight you is going to cost them everything they care about. Protocol 7 was psychological warfare on a species-wide scale. You didn't bomb their cities into rubble. That just made them angry and gave them martyrs to rally around. Instead, you systematically dismantled their entire way of life. You disrupted their trade routes, crashed their economy, turned their allies against them, and made it clear that every single day they continued to oppose you was going to make their lives measurably worse. It was the kind of warfare that required patience, creativity, and a willingness to be absolutely ruthless without necessarily being murderous. In other words, it was perfectly suited to a species that had spent most of its evolutionary history figuring out new and innovative ways to make each other miserable. You want to target their civilian infrastructure, Admiral Hayes said. It wasn't a question. I want to remind them that when you betray humanity, there are consequences that extend beyond the battlefield, Rex corrected. Their government made a decision that got 4,000 of our people killed. I think it's only fair that their entire population gets to experience the results of that decision. Ellis looked up from her console. Sir, we're receiving reports from other fleet commanders. It looks like the Zephyrians are consolidating their forces for a major offensive against our supply lines. Of course they are, Rex said, not taking his eyes off Admiral Hayes. They're still thinking like conventional military strategists. Take out our supply lines, force us to retreat, and then negotiate from a position of strength. It's exactly what any reasonable species would do. And that's the problem, Admiral Hayes said, understanding beginning to dawn in her expression. They still think we're reasonable. Exactly. Admiral, I'm requesting permission to take a small fleet deep into Zephyrian space. Not to engage their military, that's what they're expecting. I want to go after their mining operations, their trade convoys, their communications networks. I want to make it impossible for them to maintain their standard of living while they're at war with us. The Admiral was quiet again, and Rex could see her weighing the political implications. The other species in the galaxy already considered humans to be barely civilized barbarians who solved problems with excessive firepower and stubbornness. Implementing Protocol 7 would pretty much confirm that reputation. On the other hand, those same species also had a tendency to assume that humanity's unwillingness to commit genocide meant we were soft. The Zephyrians had clearly made that mistake, and look how that turned out. How many ships would you need? Give me the Retribution, 3 destroyers, and a couple of stealth frigates for reconnaissance. Small enough to avoid detection, fast enough to hit multiple targets before they can coordinate a response. Rex pulled up tactical displays showing potential target lists. The beauty of this approach is that it's completely scalable. Every day they continue to fight us, we expand the target list. Every day they keep their alliance with the hegemony, more of their infrastructure goes dark. And if they escalate in response? Rex's expression turned cold. Admiral, they already escalated when they orchestrated the deaths of 4,000 of our people. At this point, we're just making sure they understand the price of that decision. There's something you need to understand about humans and warfare. Most species in the galaxy approach conflict like a chess match. All strategy and positioning and careful calculation of acceptable losses. They fight wars to achieve specific political objectives, and once those objectives are met, or become unachievable, they negotiate peace and move on with their lives. Humans approach warfare more like a blood feud. We don't just want to win. We want our enemies to understand, on a visceral level, why fighting us was a mistake they should never make again. We want them to tell their children cautionary tales about what happens when you cross humanity. We want other species to hear those stories and think twice before they consider betraying us. It's not exactly a healthy attitude, psychologically speaking, but it's been remarkably effective at keeping us alive in a galaxy full of things that want to kill us. Authorization granted, Admiral Hayes said finally. But Rex, I want daily reports, and if this goes sideways, It won't go sideways, ma'am. It's going to go exactly where I point it. Rex turned to his crew. Ellis, signal the Wolverine, Defiant, and Scorpion to form up on us. And get me Commander Torres from the Stealth Squadron. As the communication channels opened and Rex began coordinating with his task force, he couldn't help but feel a familiar thrill. It had been too long since humanity had reminded the galaxy why we'd managed to carve out our little corner of space despite being newcomers to the interstellar community. The thing about being underestimated is that it only works to your advantage if you're smart enough to exploit it. And if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was turning other people's assumptions against them. Captain, we're approaching the Zephyrian mining facility at Kepler 442, Ellis reported 3 days later. Long-range sensors show minimal defensive presence. 2 patrol craft and a handful of automated defense platforms. Rex nodded, studying the tactical display. The mining facility was one of dozens of similar installations scattered throughout Zephyrian space, extracting rare minerals that were essential for their advanced technology. Each facility represented months of investment and years of carefully planned resource extraction. More importantly, each facility employed thousands of Zephyrian civilians who were about to have a very bad day. Any sign they've detected us? Negative, sir. The stealth coding is holding, and we're running silent. Excellent. Rex turned to his weapons officer, a grizzled veteran named Patterson, who had the look of a man who'd been blowing things up professionally for longer than most people had been alive. Patterson, I want a surgical strike on their ore processing plants and shipping facilities. Make it look like an equipment malfunction, not an attack. Patterson raised an eyebrow. Sir? Think about it, Rex explained, settling back into his command chair. If we blow everything to pieces with obvious weapons fire, they'll know they're under attack and they'll adapt accordingly. But if their processing equipment just starts having mysterious technical failures, well, that's just bad luck, isn't it? The beauty of Protocol 7 wasn't in the destruction itself. Any idiot with enough firepower could blow up a mining facility. The real genius was in making the target think they were having a run of bad luck, rather than being systematically dismantled by an enemy who had decided to get creative. Use the particle beam array, low intensity, targeted at their main processing cores. Rex continued. Make it look like a cascade failure in their power systems. And Patterson, I want their communications array to go down right after the processing equipment fails. Can't have them calling for help too quickly. Understood, sir. Beginning targeting sequence. Rex watched the tactical display as his ship maneuvered into position. The Retribution was a beautiful piece of engineering. Sleek, fast, and packed with enough firepower to reduce a small moon to its component atoms. But today, she was going to be subtle. Firing particle beam, Patterson announced. On the display, Rex could see the mining facility's power grid beginning to fluctuate. The beam was precisely calibrated to overload their fusion reactors without causing an explosion. Just a clean shutdown that would take days to repair and restart. Communications array is down, Ellis reported. They're completely cut off from the outside network. Perfect. Now we wait. And they did wait, for exactly 47 minutes, which was how long Rex estimated it would take for the facility's emergency protocols to kick in, and someone to realize they needed to send a distress signal. Just as the backup communications array came online, the Retribution hit it with another precisely targeted beam. That should give them something to think about, Rex said with satisfaction. Ellis, take us to the next target. Over the following 6 hours, Rex's task force hit 12 different installations across 4 star systems, mining facilities, research stations, communication relays, and cargo transfer points. All of them suffering mysterious technical failures that left them offline and their crews stranded. The most beautiful part of the whole operation was that the Zephyrians couldn't even be sure they were under attack. Oh, they suspected, of course, but suspicion and proof are 2 very different things. And without proof, they couldn't justify pulling their military forces away from the front lines to protect civilian infrastructure. Sir, Ellis said as they approached their final target of the day. We're receiving a transmission from Admiral Hayes. Put her through. Admiral Hayes appeared on the display, and Rex was pleased to see she looked considerably less stressed than she had 3 days ago. Rex, I don't know what you're doing out there, but keep doing it. The Zephyrian military command is in chaos. They're reporting equipment failures across their entire industrial network, and they can't figure out if it's sabotage or just incredibly bad timing. Well, Admiral, you know what they say about coincidences in wartime. The political situation is shifting too. 3 of their allied species are starting to ask questions about Zephyrian reliability. Apparently, if you can't even keep your own infrastructure running, other species start to wonder if you're competent enough to be trusted with military alliances. Rex grinned. Funny how that works out. What's your next move? Phase 2, ma'am. We've demonstrated that their civilian infrastructure is vulnerable. Now we're going to show them that their military isn't as safe as they think it is. Explain. Rex gestured to Ellis, who brought up a new set of star charts. The Zephyrians have been moving their main fleet toward our supply lines just like we expected. But to do that, they've had to pull ships away from their defensive positions around their core worlds. Their thinking is logical. They need to press their advantage while they have momentum. And besides, what's the worst we could do to their home systems with just a handful of ships? And you're about to show them. Oh, we absolutely are. But not by attacking their planets directly. See, the Zephyrians have this lovely tradition of keeping their most advanced warships in orbital shipyards around their capital world when they're not on active duty. Sort of a combination naval base and museum, where their people can come and admire the mighty fleet that protects them. Admiral Hayes' expression shifted to something that might charitably be called impressed and uncharitably be called horrified. Rex, please tell me you're not planning to attack their shipyards while they're full of civilians. Of course not, Admiral. That would be a war crime, and we're civilized people here. Rex's grin took on a distinctly predatory quality. I'm planning to steal one of their ships. The thing about military security is that it's designed to keep enemies out, not to keep your own equipment in. The Zephyrians had built their orbital shipyards with the assumption that anyone who wanted to damage their fleet would come in shooting. Not that someone might want to quietly borrow a battleship for the afternoon. This is completely insane, Commander Torres said for the 4th time as her stealth frigate approached the Zephyrian capital system. Sir, with all due respect, we're talking about infiltrating the most heavily defended system in their territory to steal one of their most advanced warships. The risk-to-benefit ratio is exactly what makes this perfect, Rex interrupted cheerfully. Torres, the Zephyrians think they know how humans fight. They expect us to charge in with guns blazing, overwhelm their defenses through superior firepower and tactical aggression. They've probably run 1,000 simulations of how we'd attack their capital system. And I'm guessing none of those simulations involved Grand Theft Starship? Exactly. We're going to do something so audacious and ridiculous that it won't occur to them to prepare for it until it's too late. The plan was, Rex had to admit, absolutely bonkers. But it was the kind of bonkers that only worked because it was so far outside normal military doctrine that no sane species would even consider it. Which fortunately meant it was perfectly suited to humans. The Zephyrian orbital shipyards were magnificent structures, gleaming metallic rings that orbited their homeworld like technological halos. Each ring held dozens of ships in various states of construction and maintenance, from small patrol craft to massive dreadnoughts that could level a city from orbit. And right there, in the most prestigious berth of the primary ring, was the Sovereign's Pride, the newest and most advanced battleship in the Zephyrian fleet. She was beautiful, all graceful curves and efficient angles, with weapon systems that represented the pinnacle of their military technology. She was also completely unguarded except for a skeleton maintenance crew. Torres, take us in nice and slow, Rex said as he reviewed the infiltration plan one more time. The Retribution was hanging back at the edge of the system, ready to provide support if things went sideways, while Rex and a small team of volunteers had transferred to one of the stealth frigates for the approach. Remember, we're just a routine maintenance shuttle coming in for a scheduled inspection. The forged identification codes had been Ellis's masterpiece, a combination of hacked Zephyrian databases and creative interpretation of their bureaucratic procedures. According to their records, Maintenance Team 7 Alpha was scheduled to perform a routine systems check on the Sovereign's Pride, and nobody had bothered to verify that Maintenance Team 7 Alpha actually existed. Approaching docking port 3, Torres reported. So far so good, they're not even bothering to scan us. Rex shook his head in amazement. You know, for a species that just betrayed their most powerful ally, they're remarkably trusting of unexpected visitors. The docking procedure went smoothly, and within minutes Rex found himself walking through the corridors of the most advanced warship the Zephyrians had ever built. The Sovereign's Pride was impressive. Her systems were a generation ahead of anything in the human fleet, and her design philosophy showed a level of sophistication that Rex had to grudgingly respect. Unfortunately for the Zephyrians, she was also completely empty, except for a dozen maintenance workers who were not at all prepared to deal with a squad of heavily armed humans who had just politely asked them to take an extended coffee break. Sir, Sergeant Williams reported over the comm. We've secured the bridge and engineering sections. The maintenance crew is cooperative. I think they're more confused than anything else. Excellent. How long do you need to get the ship operational? Well, sir, that's the interesting part. Apparently, the Zephyrians have been showing off this ship to foreign dignitaries for the past month. All her systems are fully powered and ready for a demonstration flight. Rex had to pause and appreciate the cosmic irony of the situation. The Zephyrians had been so proud of their new battleship that they'd prepared her for visitors, making Rex's job considerably easier than it had any right to be. Outstanding! Williams, I want you and your team to familiarize yourselves with the ship's systems. We've got about 20 minutes before someone notices that Maintenance Team 7 Alpha doesn't exist. And that was how, exactly 18 minutes later, the most advanced battleship in the Zephyrian fleet calmly undocked from her berth and began accelerating toward the edge of the system under her own power. It took the Orbital Defense Network another 6 minutes to realize that the Sovereign's Pride wasn't supposed to be leaving without authorization. By that point, she was already past the inner defense perimeter and accelerating rapidly toward open space. Unknown vessel, you are ordered to return to dock immediately, came the transmission from the shipyard control center. Rex could hear the confusion in the controller's voice. This clearly wasn't a situation covered in their standard operating procedures. Shipyard Control, this is Captain Rex Hartwell of the Human Colonial Navy, Rex replied pleasantly, settling into the battleship's command chair. I'm afraid I'm going to have to decline your request. We're borrowing your ship for a little while. The silence that followed was the kind of stunned quiet that happens when someone's brain completely fails to process what it just heard. Rex used the pause to familiarize himself with the ship's controls, which were surprisingly intuitive once you got past the alien symbols. You can't just steal our battleship, the controller finally managed. Well, technically I think we just did, Rex replied reasonably. But don't worry, we'll take good care of her. The Sovereign's Pride is a beautiful ship, and we have no intention of damaging her unnecessarily. This is an act of war. Actually, Rex said, consulting a datapad where Ellis had prepared a legal briefing. According to Article 15 of the Galactic Convention on Military Assets, any ship found operating in a state of criminal negligence regarding basic security protocols can be lawfully impounded by hostile forces for the duration of active conflict. Your security was so bad that we were able to walk onto your most advanced warship with forged maintenance credentials. I'd say that qualifies as criminal negligence. Of course, Rex was completely making that up. Article 15 of the Galactic Convention actually dealt with prisoner treatment, not ship security. But it sounded official enough to buy them a few more minutes of confusion, while the Zephyrians tried to figure out if he was telling the truth. Besides, Rex added cheerfully, you started this war when you betrayed us at Kepler. We're just evening the odds a little. The Sovereign's Pride cleared the outer defense perimeter and jumped to hyperspace before the Zephyrians could organize a proper response. Rex had to admit their battleship was impressively fast, faster than anything in the human fleet, with engines that ran so smoothly you could barely feel the acceleration. Sir, Williams reported from the engineering section. I've been going through the ship's technical specifications. This vessel is, well, she's amazing. Her weapons systems are at least 20% more efficient than our best designs, and her defensive capabilities are off the charts. How off the charts? Put it this way, sir. If the Zephyrians had a dozen ships like this one, they could probably take on our entire fleet and win. Rex nodded thoughtfully. That explained why the Zephyrians had been so confident about betraying humanity. They thought their technological superiority would guarantee victory. What they hadn't counted on was humans being creative enough to turn that technological superiority against them. Williams, I want you and your team to download everything. Technical specifications, operational manuals, tactical doctrines, anything and everything that might be useful. Ellis is going to have a field day analyzing all this data. Already on it, sir. We should have complete technical specifications within the hour. Excellent. Torres, set course for the rendezvous point. Let's go show Admiral Hayes our new toy. The reunion with the Retribution went smoothly, and within hours Rex found himself back on his own bridge, reviewing the intelligence windfall they'd just acquired. The Sovereign's Pride was following at a discreet distance, crewed by volunteers who were having the time of their lives figuring out alien technology. Sir, Ellis said, looking up from her analysis of the captured data. This is incredible. We now have complete technical specifications for their entire fleet, including ships that are still in development. But more importantly, we have their tactical doctrines and operational procedures. How much of an advantage does that give us? It's like having the answer key to a test, sir. We know exactly how they'll respond to any given tactical situation, what their standard formations are, how they coordinate fleet movements. If we share this information with the rest of our forces, the war's over, Rex finished. They can't fight effectively against an enemy who knows all their moves in advance. Admiral Hayes appeared on the communication screen, and Rex was pleased to see she looked positively delighted. Rex, I don't know whether to promote you or have you committed for psychiatric evaluation. The Zephyrians are absolutely beside themselves. They're demanding we return their ship immediately, and they're threatening all sorts of retaliation if we don't comply. And our response? Our response is that they can have their ship back when they withdraw from their alliance with the hegemony and pay reparations for the 4,000 people they got killed through their betrayal. Admiral Hayes' expression turned serious. But Rex, this has escalated far beyond what anyone expected. The other galactic powers are taking notice, and not all of them are happy with our methods. Ma'am, with respect, I don't particularly care if they're happy with our methods. The Zephyrians betrayed us, got thousands of our people killed, and expected us to just accept it as the cost of doing business. Well, surprise, humans don't work that way. The hegemony is mobilizing additional forces. Intelligence suggests they're planning a major offensive to take advantage of the chaos. Rex grinned. Let them come. We've got their allies' most advanced battleship, complete technical specifications for their entire fleet, and a crew that's spent the last week getting very, very creative about unconventional warfare. I think we're ready for whatever they want to throw at us. But the hegemony, as it turned out, wasn't quite ready for what humanity wanted to throw at them. The first indication that the strategic situation had changed came when a hegemony task force attempted to ambush what they thought was a routine human supply convoy. The convoy was, in fact, the Sovereign's Pride and 3 human destroyers, with Rex commanding from the stolen battleship. The hegemony forces had prepared their attack based on Zephyrian intelligence about human tactical doctrines. They expected the convoy to respond with standard defensive patterns, fall back to a prepared position, and call for reinforcements while fighting a delaying action. Instead, the Sovereign's Pride immediately accelerated toward the attacking force at full speed while broadcasting a message on all frequencies. This is Captain Rex Hartwell, commanding the Zephyrian battleship Sovereign's Pride. Any hegemony forces that want to avoid a really bad day are invited to surrender immediately. The psychological impact was devastating. The hegemony forces found themselves facing not only a superior battleship, but one that had been stolen from their own allies. The implications were clear. If humans could casually walk onto the most advanced ship in the Zephyrian fleet and steal it, what else were they capable of? The battle lasted exactly 14 minutes. The Sovereign's Pride, crewed by humans who had spent the past week learning her systems and armed with complete knowledge of hegemony tactical doctrines, cut through the attacking force like a hot knife through butter. Not a single human ship was lost, while the hegemony force was completely destroyed. More importantly, Rex made sure to broadcast the entire engagement on open channels, ensuring that every species in the sector got to watch human forces completely dominate a superior enemy using captured technology and unconventional tactics. Ellis, Rex said as they surveyed the wreckage of the hegemony task force. Send a message to Admiral Hayes. Tell her Phase 3 is ready to commence. What's Phase 3, sir? Rex's grin was absolutely predatory. Phase 3 is where we stop playing defense and start making house calls. The thing about psychological warfare is that it's most effective when your enemy starts doing your job for you. By the time Rex's task force reached the edge of Zephyrian space for their next operation, the Zephyrians were already in chaos. News of the Sovereign's Pride's theft had spread throughout their society, causing a crisis of confidence in their military leadership. Their allied species were questioning whether the Zephyrians were competent enough to be trusted with military alliances, and their own population was demanding answers about how humans had managed to walk into their most secure facility and steal their best ship. Sir, Torres reported from her position on the Sovereign's Pride's bridge. We're receiving multiple distress signals from Zephyrian installations throughout this sector. It looks like they're having equipment failures across their entire infrastructure network. Rex nodded with satisfaction. The beauty of Phase 1 was that it kept working even when you weren't actively participating. The Zephyrians were now so paranoid about sabotage that they were probably blaming every minor technical glitch on human interference, creating a feedback loop of fear and incompetence. Any military response? Negative, sir. It looks like they've pulled most of their fleet back to defend their core systems. They're so worried about us stealing more ships that they've basically abandoned their forward positions. Excellent. That makes our job considerably easier. Rex turned to Ellis, who was monitoring communications traffic. What's the chatter saying? The Zephyrian government is trying to downplay the situation, but their military command is in full panic mode. Apparently, there's a faction that wants to negotiate a separate peace with us, and another faction that wants to launch a preemptive strike against human space before we can steal any more of their ships. And the hegemony? They're not happy. 3 of their allied species have already withdrawn from the conflict, and 2 more are reconsidering their positions. Apparently, nobody wants to be on the wrong side of a species that treats battleship theft as a routine military operation. Rex had to admit, he was rather proud of humanity's reputation at the moment. It had taken less than a week to go from betrayed allies to terrifyingly unpredictable enemies who might steal your stuff if you look at them wrong. Not bad for a species that most galactic powers had considered relatively harmless just a few months ago. "Sir, we're approaching the target," Torres announced. The target was a Zephyrian research facility that, according to their captured intelligence, was developing new defensive technologies specifically designed to counter human tactics. Rex considered this a rather optimistic endeavor, given that human tactics apparently now included steal your best ship and use it against you. But he admired their determination. "Begin the approach, Torres. Let's see what our new friends have been working on." The research facility was built into an asteroid, making it virtually invisible to long-range sensors and highly defensible against conventional attack. Unfortunately for the Zephyrians, Rex wasn't planning a conventional attack. "Attention research facility Gamma 7, Rex broadcast on standard communication frequencies. "This is Captain Hartwell commanding the battleship Sovereign's Pride. We're here to conduct a routine inspection of your defensive capabilities." The response was immediate and predictable. "This is a restricted facility. You are ordered to withdraw immediately or face defensive action." "I'm afraid I can't do that," Rex replied pleasantly. "You see, we have reason to believe you're developing weapons that might be used against human forces. As the current commander of your most advanced battleship, I feel it's my responsibility to make sure those weapons don't fall into the wrong hands." "You have no authority here." "Actually, I have the Sovereign's Pride here, which I think gives me quite a bit of authority. Now, are you going to cooperate with our inspection, or do we need to make this unpleasant?" What followed was a masterclass in psychological manipulation. Rex didn't attack the facility. That would have been crude and predictable. Instead, he parked the Sovereign's Pride directly in front of their main entrance and began broadcasting a running commentary on their defensive systems. "Oh, that's interesting," he said as the facility's weapon systems powered up. "Those look like Mark 7 plasma cannons. We captured the technical specifications for those last week. Did you know they have a critical vulnerability in their targeting matrix? If you hit them with a focused electromagnetic pulse at exactly the right frequency, they'll actually target their own control systems." He paused as if considering something. "Torres, power up our EMP generators." "Let's test that theory." "Sir, they're requesting negotiations," Ellis reported. "Excellent. Put them through." The facility commander was a Zephyrian named Koreth, who looked like he'd been having a very bad day for about a week straight. "Captain Hartwell, what do you want?" "What I want, Commander Koreth, is very simple. I want you to cease all research activities related to anti-human weapons, transfer all your current research data to my ship, and then shut down this facility permanently." That's completely unreasonable. This facility represents years of research and development. And my patience represents about 5 more minutes before I decide to test whether your asteroid can survive a direct hit from your own battleship's main weapons. Rex leaned back in his command chair. "Commander, let me explain the situation. Your government betrayed humanity, got 4,000 of our people killed, and is now actively developing weapons to kill more of us. In response, we've systematically dismantled your infrastructure, stolen your most advanced ship, and demonstrated that we can go anywhere in your territory and do whatever we want." Rex's voice hardened. "Now, you can either cooperate with our reasonable request to stop trying to kill us, or you can explain to your superiors why your research facility accidentally had a catastrophic reactor failure. Your choice." The negotiation lasted another 20 minutes, but the outcome was inevitable. Faced with the prospect of losing years of research along with the facility itself, Commander Koreth agreed to Rex's terms. Within hours, the research data was transferred to the Sovereign's Pride, and the facility was permanently shut down. "Sir," Ellis said as they departed the asteroid, "that's the 15th Zephyrian facility we've neutralized this week. At this rate, they're going to run out of infrastructure before we run out of targets." "That's rather the point, Ellis. The Zephyrians thought they could betray us and suffer only military consequences. We're showing them that betraying humanity has consequences that extend to every aspect of their civilization." "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Hayes." Rex nodded. "Put her through." Admiral Hayes appeared on the display, and for the first time in weeks, she looked genuinely pleased. "Rex, I have news. The Zephyrian government has just sent a formal request for negotiation through neutral channels. Apparently, they're interested in discussing terms for ending hostilities. Are they now?" "And what terms are they proposing?" "Complete withdrawal from their alliance with the hegemony, full reparations for the casualties they caused, and... Admiral Hayes paused, consulting her notes. And the return of the Sovereign's pride in exchange for a formal peace treaty. Rex laughed. They want their ship back? How adorable. What did you tell them? I told them I'd have to consult with the officer currently commanding their battleship. Admiral Hayes's expression grew serious. Rex, the political situation is shifting rapidly. 3 more hegemony allies have withdrawn from the conflict, and there are rumors that the hegemony leadership is considering a negotiated settlement. Your little campaign has had far-reaching consequences. Good. Maybe next time they'll think twice before betraying their allies. Rex considered the situation. Admiral, I think it's time for Phase 4. There's a Phase 4? There's always a Phase 4. Phase 4 is where we demonstrate that humanity doesn't just win wars. We rewrite the rules of galactic politics while we're doing it. The Galactic Council chambers hadn't seen this much drama since the Altarian Trade War of 2387, and that had involved actual assassinations, and at least 3 different species threatening to weaponize black holes. Today's emergency session was technically more civilized, but the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a plasma torch. Representative Valak of the Hegemony was on his feet, his multiple arms gesticulating wildly as he addressed the assembled delegates. The human actions represent a complete violation of civilized warfare. They have stolen military assets, conducted terrorist attacks on civilian infrastructure, and completely ignored the established protocols for interstellar conflict. Rex, wearing his dress uniform and looking remarkably relaxed for someone who was technically on trial for war crimes, raised his hand politely. Point of order, Representative Valak. I believe the term you're looking for is irregular warfare, not terrorism. Terrorism implies targeting civilians to create fear for political purposes. We've been very careful to target only military assets and infrastructure directly supporting the war effort. You stole their battleship! We requisitioned a military asset that was left undefended due to criminal negligence in security protocols. There's a significant legal difference. The presiding officer, a dignified member of the Centauri Diplomatic Corps, looked like he was developing a headache. Captain Hartwell, while your creative interpretation of military law is noted, the Council is more concerned with the broader implications of your actions. Your campaign has destabilized the entire sector. With respect, sir, the sector was destabilized the moment the Zephyrians decided to betray their allies and orchestrate the deaths of 4,000 human beings. We simply responded to that destabilization in a manner calculated to restore the balance of power. Ambassador Theron of the Zephyrian delegation stood up, her scales literally shimmering with agitation. Captain Hartwell, your actions have caused immeasurable damage to our society. Our economy is in ruins, our military credibility is destroyed, and our people live in constant fear of what you might do next. Rex turned to face her, his expression perfectly calm. Ambassador Theron, with all due respect, that was rather the point. Your government chose to betray humanity, and we chose to make sure that decision had consequences. If those consequences seem disproportionate, perhaps your government should have considered that before orchestrating a military action that got 4,000 of our people killed. But the damage to civilian populations has been minimal, Rex interrupted. Ambassador, in the 3 weeks since we began operations, how many Zephyrian civilians have died as a direct result of human action? Ambassador Theron looked uncomfortable. That's not the point. Actually, it's exactly the point. The answer is 0, Ambassador. 0 civilian casualties, despite the fact that we've systematically dismantled your military infrastructure and industrial capacity. Compare that to the 4,000 human military personnel who died because your government fed their positions to the enemy. The council chamber fell silent. It was one thing to argue about military ethics in abstract terms, but Rex had just laid out the casualty figures in stark, undeniable numbers. Humanity had managed to bring an entire civilization to its knees without killing a single non-combatant. Representative Kormar of the Altarian Federation leaned forward. Captain Hartwell, while the Council appreciates your restraint in targeting civilian populations, your methods have raised serious concerns about the precedent being set. If every species begins conducting irregular warfare operations, then maybe every species will think twice before betraying their allies, Rex finished. Representative Kormar, humanity didn't ask to be in this situation. We were betrayed by allies we trusted, and we responded with methods calculated to end the conflict as quickly as possible with minimal loss of life. I'd say that's more ethical than prolonging a conventional war that would have killed hundreds of thousands. Admiral Hayes, who had been sitting quietly in the observers section, stood up. If I may address the Council, I'd like to provide some context on the human position. The presiding officer nodded. The floor recognizes Admiral Hayes of the Human Colonial Navy. Thank you. Honorable delegates, 3 weeks ago, humanity faced a crisis. Our allies had betrayed us, our forces were under attack, and our enemies believed we were weak enough to be easily defeated. Captain Hartwell's operations have not only ended that immediate threat, but have fundamentally altered the strategic balance in this sector. Admiral Hayes activated a holographic display showing the current military situation. The Hegemony Alliance has lost 6 member species, their military coordination has collapsed, and their leadership is actively seeking negotiated settlement. The Zephyrians have withdrawn from all offensive operations and are requesting peace talks. 3 neutral species have approached us about mutual defense agreements. She paused, letting the implications sink in. Ladies, gentlemen, and honorable beings of various descriptions, Captain Hartwell has won this war in 3 weeks, with 0 civilian casualties and minimal loss of military life. I submit that this represents the most successful application of irregular warfare in modern galactic history. Representative Valak was back on his feet. Success achieved through methods that violate every principle of civilized conflict. If the Council allows these actions to stand, it will legitimize piracy, sabotage, and theft as acceptable military strategies. Rex stood up slowly, and somehow his calm presence seemed to fill the entire chamber. Representative Valak, I think you're missing the fundamental point here. The principles of civilized conflict are based on the assumption that all parties will honor their agreements and fight with some measure of integrity. The moment the Zephyrians chose to betray their allies, those principles were already violated. He turned to address the full council. Honorable delegates, humanity has spent the past century trying to be good galactic citizens. We've honored our treaties, respected the sovereignty of other species, and played by everyone else's rules. And where did that get us? Betrayed by our allies and facing a war, we didn't start against enemies who saw our adherence to civilized principles as weakness to be exploited. Rex's voice grew harder. So we changed the rules. We stopped playing by the assumptions of species who had already proven they couldn't be trusted, and we started playing by human rules. And human rules are very simple. If you betray us, if you orchestrate the deaths of our people, if you think you can use our principles against us, then you will discover that humanity can be far more creative and ruthless than you ever imagined. The chamber was dead silent. Rex looked around at the assembled delegates, representing dozens of species from across the galaxy, and he could see the calculations going on behind their eyes. Some were horrified by humanity's methods, but all of them were impressed by the results. The question before this council, Rex continued, is not whether humanity's methods were conventional. The question is whether the galaxy is going to be a place where betraying your allies has consequences, or whether it's going to remain a place where strength is rewarded and honor is for suckers. Representative Thakur of the Regelian Confederacy, one of the most respected voices in the council, spoke up. Captain Hartwell, assuming the council accepts the legitimacy of your actions, what are humanity's terms for ending this conflict? Rex smiled, and it was the kind of smile that suggested he'd been hoping someone would ask that question. Our terms are simple, Representative Thakur. The Zephyrians will formally withdraw from their alliance with the Hegemony, pay full reparations for the casualties they caused through their betrayal, and accept a human military observer corps to ensure compliance with the peace agreement. And the Sovereign's pride will be returned to the Zephyrians once all other terms are met, along with technical modifications that will prevent her from being used in offensive operations against human forces. Rex's smile widened. We're not interested in keeping their ship permanently. We just want to make sure it can't be used against us again. Ambassador Theron looked like she wanted to object, but one look at the expressions of the other delegates told her that resistance was futile. The council had heard the arguments, seen the results, and reached their own conclusions about which side had acted reasonably. The Hegemony will also withdraw from this conflict, Rex continued, and will provide assurances that they will not attempt to interfere with human operations in this sector. In return, humanity will return to peaceful relations with all species that honor their agreements and treat us with the respect due to sovereign allies. Representative Valak's multiple arms drooped in defeat. And if the Hegemony refuses these terms? Rex's expression became absolutely predatory. Then we'll continue demonstrating why betraying humanity is a career-limiting decision until they change their minds. Representative Valak, we've shown remarkable restraint so far. I'd hate for anyone to test the limits of human patience. The vote, when it came, was largely a formality. The Galactic Council officially recognized humanity's right to seek redress for the Zephyrian betrayal, endorsed the proposed peace terms, and formally censured the Hegemony for their role in escalating the conflict. More importantly, they established what would become known as the Hartwell Doctrine, The principle that irregular warfare methods were acceptable responses to treaty violations and ally betrayal, provided they were conducted with appropriate restraint regarding civilian casualties. 6 months later, Rex found himself back on the bridge of the Retribution, watching as the Sovereign's Pride was formally returned to Zephyrian custody. The battleship had been extensively modified during her time in human hands. Her weapons systems had been recalibrated to prevent targeting of human vessels. Her communications array included a human monitoring system, and her tactical databases had been completely rewritten to exclude sensitive information about human capabilities. "It's almost sad to see her go," Ellis said, watching the handover ceremony on the main view screen. "She was a beautiful ship." "She was," Rex agreed, "but she was never really ours. Besides, we got everything we needed from her. Complete technical specifications, tactical doctrines, and a very clear demonstration to the galaxy that humanity is not to be underestimated." Admiral Hayes appeared on the communication display, looking considerably more relaxed than she had during the crisis. "Rex, I have your new orders. Let me guess. We're being reassigned to patrol duty in some peaceful sector where nothing interesting ever happens." Admiral Hayes laughed. "Actually, quite the opposite. The Andorian Alliance has formally requested human military advisors to help them modernize their tactical doctrines. Apparently, our reputation for creative problem-solving has spread, and they want to learn from our experience." Rex raised an eyebrow. "They want us to teach them irregular warfare?" "They want you to teach them how to think like humans when it comes to military strategy. The official title is Advanced Tactical Innovation Consultant. But yes, essentially they want to learn how to be as creatively ruthless as we are." "And the Zephyrians? Are model citizens now." "Their new government has been extremely cooperative. Their military has restructured to focus on defensive operations, and they've become one of our most reliable trading partners." "Funny how that worked out." Rex nodded with satisfaction. The Zephyrian betrayal had been a painful lesson, but it had also been an opportunity. Humanity had demonstrated that we could be trusted as allies and feared as enemies, often simultaneously. More importantly, we'd established that betraying humanity had consequences that extended far beyond the immediate military situation. "Sir," Ellis said, interrupting his thoughts, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Altarian Federation. They're requesting immediate assistance with what they're calling an unusual strategic situation." Rex grinned. "Patch them through, Ellis. Let's see what kind of creative problem-solving the galaxy needs today." As the transmission connected and Rex prepared to hear about humanity's next challenge, he reflected on how much had changed in just a few months. The galaxy had learned that humans were capable of far more than anyone had imagined, both in terms of friendship and in terms of retaliation. The Zephyrian betrayal had been intended to remove humanity as a factor in galactic politics. Instead, it had established us as one of the most influential species in the sector, with a reputation for solving problems through methods that other species found simultaneously impressive and terrifying. And the best part? This was just the beginning. Humanity had spent centuries learning how to survive on a hostile planet, and now we were applying those same skills to surviving in a hostile galaxy. We were adaptable, creative, persistent, and absolutely unwilling to be pushed around by species who thought they could take advantage of our principles. The galaxy was about to learn that underestimating humanity was a mistake you only made once. And for those species smart enough to learn from the Zephyrian example, well, they were about to discover that having humans as allies was even better than having us as enemies. After all, we'd already proven we were very, very good at both. "Captain," the Altarian representative said as the transmission cleared, "we have a situation that requires unconventional solutions. A species called the Vorthan Empire has been making territorial demands backed by threats of military action. They seem to believe that advanced technology gives them the right to dictate terms to their neighbors." Rex's grin widened. "Representative, you've come to the right people. Humanity specializes in explaining to overconfident species why their assumptions about galactic politics might need some adjustment. Can you help us?" "Can we help you?" Rex looked around his bridge, seeing the eager expressions of his crew. They'd gotten a taste of creative problem-solving, and they were hungry for more. "Representative, we're going to teach the Vorthan Empire why picking fights with human allies is an even worse idea than picking fights with humans directly." "And how exactly do you plan to do that?" Rex leaned back in his command chair, already running through possibilities. "The Vorthans probably thought they understood human capabilities based on conventional military analysis. They'd studied our ships, our weapons, our standard tactical doctrines, and concluded they could handle us. They had no idea what they were in for." "Representative," Rex said with the kind of confidence that came from having successfully stolen an enemy battleship and used it to rewrite galactic politics. Let me tell you about something we call Protocol 7. By the time we're finished with the Vorthons, they're going to be begging to become our allies instead of threatening our friends. And as the Retribution changed course toward Altarian space, Rex couldn't help but think that the galaxy was becoming a much more interesting place. Humanity had found its niche in the interstellar community. We were the species you called when conventional solutions weren't working, and you needed someone creative enough to rewrite the rules of engagement. It was, Rex reflected, exactly the kind of job that humans were born to do. After all, we'd spent our entire evolutionary history figuring out how to survive impossible situations through a combination of intelligence, stubbornness, and sheer bloody-minded refusal to give up. Now we were applying those same skills on a galactic scale, and the results were going to be spectacular. The Vorthons, Rex thought cheerfully, had absolutely no idea what was about to hit them, but they were going to learn, just like the Zephyrians had learned, that betraying humanity or threatening human allies was a mistake that carried consequences far beyond anything they could imagine. And if they were smart, they'd learn quickly. Because humanity was just getting started, and the galaxy was about to discover that there was no limit to human creativity when it came to solving problems that other species couldn't handle. The age of human diplomacy through superior firepower and tactical innovation had officially begun, and Rex couldn't wait to see what challenges tomorrow would bring. After all, the universe was a big place, full of species who still thought they understood how humans worked. They were all about to learn how wrong they were. The end.